Right. Greetings, everyone. Let me check my pages here real quick. Got that. All right. It looks like we're good to go. And as usual, I hope everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. And we're going to discuss one more time. They fell into dishonor. We're going to make this the last of the video series on that, though I'll still be bringing more information that is relative to this particular situation. As we spoke last night in regards to the term payment, I told you tonight we would go over payment in kind. And so we're going to do that, but we're going to expedite the reading because there's one term that I want everybody to pay attention to when it comes to investments concerning the commercial forum, the Uniform Commercial Form, as it relates to the Union Customs Codes. So we have a UCC and a UCC. They're two different acronyms meaning two different things. We're going to show how that works. So the panel link is down there for anybody that wants to join the panel. Feel free. If you're here, I want to show appreciation. I do want to show appreciation again for the donations recently. Anybody that's contributed, thank you. Kindly received. And if you're make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And if you're on Hecklebus, get over to El Perro and do the same. And if you're on El Perro, get over to Hecklebus, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Help these algorithms. There's also a PayPal button down in the details if anybody wants to share some love. In the meantime, we're going to get started with that definition of payment in kind, again from Investopedia. And it says, what is payment in kind? Payment in kind is the use of a good or service as payment instead of cash. Now, as we already discussed, coin is not the same as cash. There's a distinct difference according to the weights and measures. And it works as the payment. So when the Postal Service offered a document with titles and assignments already on it, that was issued as a cash document, wherein a value could be placed on it with certain terms specified. Payment in kind also refers to a financial instrument that pays interest or dividends to investors of bonds, notes, or preferred stock with additional securities or equity instead of cash. We're going to revisit this. In the meantime, we're going to look for that note. Oh, goodness. Let me show you something here. Notes, as we read here, and there are 16 of them, one being here. The next one being payment in kind notes, give the issuer a chance to delay making dividend payments in cash. In return for the delay, the issuing company typically agrees to offer a higher rate of return on the note. I'll gladly pay you for 2 hamburgers on Tuesday for a hamburger today. It is a promissory note. It is a promise if it is a note. It is an order if it is a draft. So a payment in kind, as we see here, is a promise. In most cases, PIK, payment in kind notes, comprise a fraction of a company's total outstanding debts, and the financier structures these notes so they mature later than the company's other debts. This allows the company to focus on repaying traditional debts or debts tied to cash dividends more quickly, but it adds additional risk to the financer. To cover their risk, most financiers stipulate an early payment penalty to maximize their potential earnings. An early payment penalty? Come on. You're going to offer up another payment in kind and keep that penalty going? You catching on, folks? Pay if you like. Sometimes called toggle notes or pay if you want. Pay if you like agreements give the borrower, though sometimes the issuer, the discretion to elect the type of payment to make. So I can make it a money payment, or I can give a good faith deposit specially directed to make a different type of payment. You catching on? It's plain writing. The borrower can often choose between paying in cash, in kind, or in a combination of the two. Now, if the United States is the one that issues those Federal Reserve notes as promises, then it would be quid pro quo, promise for promise. That would seem like, one holding the other to be an obligor to the promise while being an obligee. While quid pro, the other obligor would stand also in place of being an obligee and be able to hold me liable as an obligor. Combination of the two, money and its equivalent. This structure allows a borrower to continue to pay interest on a bond or defer payments until the bond matures. Now, if the United States has a bond out there, or if the state has a bond out there and it ain't matured, why not defer its payment until the bond matures? And then once that bond matures, you can direct that payment in the interest of the United States if it's being held by the state. That way they can collect on the maturity of the bond for themselves and their benefit, and that debt with the United States is cleared up, and I'm the third party making the accommodation for accord and satisfaction by use of the instrument. Should the borrower elect to defer cash payment and instead be assessed payment in kind interest, the prevailing interest rate used will be higher. Good. Go ahead and use that higher one. Here's my promise. See how that credit debit works? Holdco payment in kind. Certain debt agreements add in a holding company level in which debt payment are reliant on the operating company's stream of cash. Would that be the Federal Reserve? Are you organized under the Federal Reserve as a holding company so that you can transfer those bills, notes? Any debt service or repayments of principal may be contingent on distributions from an operating group that may be subject to conditions of its own. The military is that very operation. Under Area Office 32 CFR Money and Finance 1604.2, Area Office, the Selective Service, is responsible for all operations and administration of the board or boards within its jurisdiction. Conditions of its own. If people don't think I know what I'm talking about, that's fine. I'm telling you, don't believe me. Don't believe your neighbor. Don't believe the government. And for crying out fucking loud, don't believe your mother. Learn how to do your research so you can know. So let's go on to the next one. Example of payment kind. To illustrate how payment in kind notes work. That should all you need to know. Everything that's already been stated is all you really need to know. It's a promise to pay. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for 2 hamburgers today. Or for a hamburger today. The notes have a 10% interest rate. Remember I told you about the TID, it's 10%. It all concurs. So give them their 10%. That's their TID. The rest goes to principal. Great. I'm the principal. And since I'm such a forgiving guy, I'm going to give that back to the community. I don't need it. I'm the one extending the credit that keeps this all circulating. It's no longer to be held in holding. However, instead of being required to repay that amount or any principal payments, the interest is added to the debt in kind. So it's just added to the promise. That way, you can just let it mature. And if they demand the higher rate, great, that's fine. The principal is still going to me, and I still said it goes back to the local community. So send it to the local community where it originated from, the point of origin. That way it goes out and comes back. It's simple. PIK notes give the issuer a chance to delay making dividend payments in cash and return for the delay. The issuing company typically agrees to offer a higher rate of return on the note. Yeah, I agree. Give them their higher interest rate, but it's in the interest of the United States. And I'll let the state act as the principal, and it's on the agreement that everything goes back to the local community where it started from. And it doesn't get held in holding by the state. Why would PIK debt be attracted to some firms? Investment firms. PIK securities. So when you're dealing with those payments in kind, they're securities. But again, like I said, they're at the state level. Those are blue sky securities laws. Look them up. Each state has one. Blue sky laws. In most cases, PIK notes compromise with promise. No shit. No shit. With promise. It's a note if it's a promise. Is that babble right in their communication? PIK notes compromise a fraction of a company's total outstanding debt, meaning it has no standing. And the financier structures these notes so they mature later than the company's other debts. This is so they can pay the more interested parties. I thought a longer holding of a debt created a higher rate of return, higher interest. But that's riskier. I thought it was all insured. See what I'm getting at? I'm going to show you some receipts here in a few. Toggle note. What it means, how it works. A toggle note is a payment in kind bond. So now we know promissory notes are bonds where you can toggle the note from the low interest rate to the high interest rate, from the high interest rate to a low interest rate. However you want to work it depends on who's operating it. A toggle note is a payment in kind bond in which the issuer has the option to defer an interest payment by paying an increased coupon in the future. 18 U.S.C. 8, Obligations and Other Securities of the United States, where it first starts out, includes all bonds. And therein it states in plain writing, no capitalization or punctuation, stamps, and other representatives of value. Let me take a look at the board, see if anybody's up. Just want to take a moment to tell everybody hi, say hello to everybody. Freedom Fire, Dominic Tersigny, Norman Longstaff, Chris, Gen V, Discog, greetings. Anybody else out there, my apologies, I don't see you. Welcome aboard. Thanks for joining. And if you're on Facebook, make sure if you want to get on the panel or join this chat, come on over to one of the YouTube channels. In the meantime, hit the like, share, and subscribe. If you're on Hecklebus, get over to El Perro. And if you're on El Perro, get over to Hecklebus and do the same. And with that, we'll go ahead and continue on with the next then. The equity. What is it, how it works, and how to calculate it? Equity, typically referred to as shareholders. Those holding. Equity or owners' equity for privately held companies. This is in regards to the statutes that are operated by privately held companies. They are exclusive equity for those privately held companies and their shareholders. Represents the amount of money that would be returned to a company's shareholders if all the assets were liquidated and all of the company's debt was paid off in case of liquidation. That's equity. So equity is an action of settlement and clearing all accounts. So you can tell all them gurus about equity to fuck off. It's that simple. Right? I don't care who it is. I don't care how many of those. I've read them. I know how long them fucking equity chapters are. And it cannot possibly be that confusing. Equity is as what equity does. What is done is what ought to be done. There is nothing new under the sun. These do nothing but disambiguate it. Or excuse me, ambiguate it. It creates confusion. In the case of acquisition, remember we went over Federal Code of Regulations 48 CFR 52.212-5, contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes, executive orders, commercial items, commercial products. It is the value of company sales minus any liabilities owed by the company not transferred with the sale. In addition, shareholder equity can represent the book value of a company. The book entry system. Remember, we talked about the general journal that has a data element, that's a definitive paper form that's entered into the general ledger, which is now an electronic export-import system. Equity can sometimes be offered as payment in kind. Remember, pay if you like. So it's tell you what, I'll pay you if I want. because you ain't got nothing to pay me. And you've already got a promise on the table. And that's a clear message in the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. Owe no man anything but to love one another. For to love one another is the fulfillment of the law. Are you trying to tell me you don't love me by making a charge against me? And trying to placate that it's against me when it's identified by a name and number, which clearly identifies a record? It also represents the pro rata ownership of a company's shares. Equity can be found on a company's balance sheet and is one of the most common pieces of data employed by analysts to assess a company's financial health. A company's financial health. I've got this nice handy little book here in front of me. It's a psychology book. So we want to talk about health, and we talk about our imagination. Imaginative thinking. Cartoonists often display creativity as they see things in a new ways or make unusual connections. Cartoonist Gary Larson described his creative process in The Complete Far Side, a cartoon from 2003, and quote, "If you would allow me any talent, it's simply this. I can, for whatever reason, reach down into my own brain, feel around in all the mush, find and extract something from my persona, and then graft it onto an idea." So if you'll notice on my YouTube channel, I've got multiple personalities. Each one of them has a certain character extracted from my imagination and grafted onto it. And you can tell that both by picture and by the names. And I can put them in any order I want. I can use each and every one of them as a pen name in an order. Do you get this? It's a simple concept. Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, Tom Sawyer. So as Keith Little, I created a pen name, El Hotep II Pharaoh. And under El Hotep II Pharaoh, I created these different characters and started a storyline, much like Tom Sawyer, much like Huckleberry Finn. And in this storyline, you hear about different characters. And the main character is Word Wizard. Do you see how I'm creating my own private journal? Do you know how to keep that first person, second person, and third person in the order and not applicable to yourself? Know thyself, love thyself as thy neighbor, love thy neighbor as thyself. The self is a spiritual presence. The neighbor is the manual presence. So the man is the neighbor of the spirit. So in Tom Sawyer, part of the story is that he's got to whitewash his fence. He's doing it for his aunt. He's very loyal to his aunt, loves his aunt. Despite his attitude and everything, his belligerence, he's loyal to his aunt. So what's he do? He places all the honor in his aunt. Man, I'm out here working hard, busting my ass, painting this fence for my aunt. It's a good thing, man. It's so honorable. And the people that he was telling this to, his other friends in the neighborhood, he spoke honorably of the duty of working for the queen, the aunt. It was this that impressed those other children. And it was this impression that Tom Sawyer expressed, that they trusted that what they were going to do was good work. They wanted to step up and hold the honor of performing some labor for such an honorable woman, that they would give Tom the things in their pockets. And by the end of the day, Tom didn't do much painting, but Tom made all the money, and Aunt got her fence painted. See, Tom made all the good things that the other people were willing to give to provide a service for the queen. And Tom just simply acted as the middleman, contracting it out. See, the scripture's the same way. It's just a set of principles and events that help explain a better way to live, a greater truth. And I tell you, when you observe things, you can find things that are confusing and start asking questions for greater truths. So I'm going to show you some of my spending habit today. As I went down to the local store, grocery store first, had a package of some Hot Wheels cars I had to send across the nation. So I went down to a local grocery store, and that's where they've got this substation. They've got the little postal scale and everything. And on the wall, they've got this nice little certificate of land stewardship and Department of Agriculture certificate. And this is because there's a conservation easement, of course, for environmental protections and wildlife, fisheries, and game. And of course, they have to have weights and measures. So they've got a scale. They've got to weigh everything. So I had them weigh it and everything. And I paid for it with a U.S. debit card in the name of Keith Orton Little, FBU. On that receipt, it's got all kinds of nice information. You can see I paid $11.80 for the package. They tell you how much it weighed and everything. Estimated delivery date, tracking number, insurance. See, that's what you just bought, folks. And it tells you insurance. U.S. Postal Service Ground Advantage. That's the insurance of the routing. It's being routed on ground. And you paid the insurance to make sure that it goes from point of origin to its final destination. Okay. Now, while I was there, I purchased a pack of cigarettes for my companion. And this is at the store. And they have a separate postal checkout that issues this receipt. But then their internal store, they will ask you if you want the internal receipt if you buy another product, or if you just want a copy of this one from the store. And what happens is you'll see that they put the 66 cents on there for stamp single. I bought a stamp, and the $11.80. Okay, so there's $11.80 for the shipping. There's 66 cents for a stamp that didn't show up on this receipt. Pay attention. So I've got the $7.90 for the cigarettes. It's got a T on there. Then they've got the 7% local excise tax. Purchase. And look at there. It says U.S. debit. Now, how do they take a postal service that was paid for? And it shows the receipt it was paid. And it does not say credit or debit. This is evidence that it was paid. And then create another document with the excess purchases of other items. And they create a U.S. debit for a total of $20.91. All by using a credit device to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit. If it was obtained on credit, why is it showing debit? Then, as I said, I went down to the post office again and spoke to the postmaster in private in the back office to settle the situation. And so I got to finally mail my package to the Office of Inspector General and the Board of Governors. And again, I get another receipt. It's priority mail. And on their form itself, it says for domestic and international use. So when the officer Chance wanted to sit there and argue with me and call the police on me, it proved his incompetence. This is a form they use multiple times throughout the day. They should know this. On there, you'll notice it says, even though I used my debit card remit. This is a remittance coupon. This is coupon. Card number, account number, approval, transaction, receipt, debit card purchase. U.S. debit. If I use the debit card and it's got my name on it or the name of the organization, the FBU, Keith Thornton and Little FBU in all upper caps, and that's where that debit comes from. How come they're placing the debit on the United States? Again, that's a trust. That's not a U.S. person. Okay? It's not a resident. And it's not a federal United States national or citizen. So that was to mail my package down there. Then I stopped at a local store and got some items, and I did it in 2 purchases. But the way I did it is specific because I ordered one thing, put it on the counter, paid for it. Said, oh, wait a minute. I need this too. So he said, okay. Got that, paid for it. Then I asked him for the receipt, and he gave me the receipt for the last transaction. And I had to ask him for a receipt for the previous transaction. So these are the 2 different receipts. They are, in fact, different sizes in all elements. This one's a narrow receipt showing me he got it from one machine. This one shows me a receipt that was prior that he got from a different machine, a different device. This is one of those little Indian stores. India. They're amount $2. Approval reference card holder acknowledgement. Notice it doesn't say anything about debit. Oh, MasterCard debit. There it is. MasterCard debit. So now it's a MasterCard debit. This one here was for the original purchase that they had to go back in and get from a different machine. See that says sales invoice? That says sales invoice. What's an invoice? Well, that's a list of the things ordered. And on that invoice, it's got the dollar amounts and everything. It's got the excise taxes, all of it. Including, again, the coupon. That's a coupon rate. That's a payment in kind coupon rate. It's the same thing as a promissory note to pay. Invoice. Please tell us your boss revolution number with every order. Every order. Okay? So I made an order, they created an invoice, and then I supposedly paid with a debit. How do you create an order and then turn it into a note as a promise to pay? You see what I'm saying, folks? It's right on the instrument that what they've done is a little shisty or scandalous. Okay? By the order of the presentation right on the instrument, the credit device. So let's take a look at the next thing. Because everything is going to go to a credit somewhere. And like I said, our Father which art in heaven, Treaty of Berne is where everything starts. Literary and artistic works, your spoken or written word, which are known to be inventions, fabrications, or fictions, but they are protected. Okay? If you guys remember me speaking about the Royal Warrant Holders Association here a while back, as it relates to the Union Customs Codes, as we mentioned earlier, Uniform Commercial Codes and Union Custom Codes, International Parliamentary Union, Universal Postal Union, the UN. This is a member directory for the Royal Warrant Holders Association, which is a contract service to provide goods and services to the households, the royal household, the parliamentary union. Her Majesty's the Queen, which is no longer what you think it is. Instead of having Her Majesty as the head of it, we now have His Highness the King. And under His Highness the King, we now have Her Majesty the Queen Camilla. And we have the other two royal houses. So now we have 4 royal houses instead of the 3 as prior. Because you still have His Royal Highness the Duke and His Royal Highness the Prince. They just changed positions, and now we have a king and a queen. Okay? Or the world has a king and a queen. Now you can filter by the grantor, Her Majesty the Queen, His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. This is outdated, like I said, since she died. There's a king. And he decided to appoint Camilla as the queen. And that's an appointment. And as an appointment, that's a royal warrant holder appointment. It's the bestowing of an honor so that she can contract. Filter by trade category, agriculture and animal welfare, where an animal includes man, and man's labor is converted in many ways through a general jurisdictions because they violated the exclusive jurisdiction of Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. That was the first communication. Let's see here. Filter by region. Filter by local association. Okay. And of course, this is all filtered through the UN. Her Majesty's Union Customs Code is now His Highness's Union Custom Codes. Her Majesty's Universal Postal Union is now His Highness's Universal Postal Union. And now the Queen, Her Majesty, is a royal warrant holder and allowed to contract through His Highness's unions. It's a delegation of authority. The next one. All warrant holding companies by appointment to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So now this is changing again, but this is just a list that of royal warrant holders that are going to get issued new certificates. They receive certificates, okay? And it tells you all of them who, and all you got to do is look up royal warrant holding companies, and your search engine should pull it up. And it's got a whole list of them. And these are all contractors. Coca-Cola, Cochrane. So if you think it's only for European countries, you're wrong. These are corporations that contract worldwide. And it's all done through corporate charters at the UN. These are the corporate charters at the UN. Goodness gracious. The United States isn't in there. You know why? Because there is no centralized government, folks. It's a misnomer. United States is a corporation, sub-corporation of some other corporation of some other corporation. It all leads to royal warrant holders. Amazing stuff when you look at it. No United States there either. No. Unitech is in there in all three of them. Okay. I know it may seem boring and a little drawn out here, but I want people to pay attention and connect these dots. I'm showing you. Showing you what's happening. Because despite all of that, there's still this statement. And this is the nationallawreview.com. And notice it's got a padlock when you go to this site. God save the Queen's royal warrant holders. In a modern world of celebrity and influencer endorsements, that's what the endorsement is all about. It's about influencing. It's about manipulation. And if you don't know what you're manipulating, you shouldn't be endorsing it. There's arguably one endorsement that still trumps others: the royal warrant. The granting of an English monarch's royal seals of approval dates back to 1155, when King Henry II granted the Weavers' Company, makers of clothes and castle hangings, a royal charter. The endorsement was formalized in 1476 when Edward IV granted the first royal warrant to printer William Caxton, and subsequent monarchs have continued to award warrants to their favored suppliers. Okay? It's about supplying the houses. As we saw under the monarch of the Majesty, Her Majesty the Queen, she was the mother. Okay, what comes of the mother goes back to the mother. What's of the father goes back to the father. Give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Give unto the father what belongs to the father. I give up this body to the mother, and the soul goes back to the father. To prevent fraudulent claims of royal patronage, the Royal Warrant Holders Association was established in 1840. Today, having a royal warrant is no longer a guarantee that the holder is an exclusive supplier to the crown, merely that they are preferred supplier. So the United States doesn't have a royal warrant, but they're using these other people as preferred suppliers. The prestige that comes with providing goods and services to the sovereign has boosted business for centuries. See why they want to distinguish that term sovereign citizen as if though it applies to you? The prestige that comes with providing goods and services to the sovereign has boosted business for centuries. A warrant is seen as a guarantee that a supplier has the highest standards of service, quality, and excellence, that that products are quite literally fit for a king, no less. However, following the death of the late Queen Elizabeth II, questions have been asked of what happens to warrants she granted during her lifetime. A royal warrant grants permission to display the royal arms on a product, packaging, stationery, adverts, premises, and vehicles. In line with the Lord Chamberlain's rules, the royal arms must be accompanied by the legend "by appointment to," followed by the name of the grantor. Now, I spoke about these things in the videos earlier, a few years back, in regards to the family crest and heralding of the arms. See, I've spoken about the Second Amendment. Your right to bear arms is false. You have a right to your armorial bearing, followed by the name of the grantor. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's who I serve. So when it comes to the goods and services that are materialistic, yeah, they can go back to the house, but only after I'm done using them. It's a usufruct system, possession and use. You hold the title all you want. When I get done, it'll come back to you. Because when I'm done in this earth, anybody that's my inheritance, they're going to have a legacy to be able to do it themselves. It's education, knowledge, wisdom to show them how to do the exact same thing. I don't care about the materialistic things, but make sure you provide me with plenty of it in honor. I found an interesting warrant indenture from November 10th, 2014. So I'm going to study this in regards to its structure. But that won't be necessary for a time to come. Just show you what my next research is going to be. Yeah. But I do want to show you in regards to the warrants and the property that they claim to possess, which is the land. That's what that exclusive jurisdiction is for through the general jurisdictions, is that they have access to those lands, and those lands they have access for entry and control because they want the minerals. The minerals, mine rails, mine rules. The rules are mine, mother's rules. So let's take a look at it. Two elements that are important in regards to the land and the minerals in modern technology. And I told people here a few times not too long ago that one of the best investments, if you're really going to be invested in this system, invest in aluminum. Aluminum's a lightweight structure, and they're using alloys to make them even lighter but stronger. One of them is carbon fibers. Now, carbon comes in many forms, specifically mineral. Anything that you find as a mineral, that's a carbon. Okay? Otherwise, it would be hydrogen or oxygen, and depending on its mix, would create water. Now, if you unmix them, in other words, start separating the hydrogen and oxygen, it's going to do something. It's going to cause something else. It's going to create something else. Niobium is a chemical element, refractory metal of group 5 VB of the periodic table, used in alloys, tools, and dyes, and superconductive magnets. Niobium is closely associated with tantalum in ores and in properties. Properties are the classifications of things. It's a very important element in contracting for goods and services. It depends on the properties. See where I'm going? Okay, so as a refractory metal, it has to do with its light energy. It refracts. It's going to take in that light energy. It's going to send it off. Now, as it takes in one level, as it bounces off, it's going to export it at at a lower level. Every time it bounces off something, it's going to decrease in level. However, when you take two crystals and you rub them together, it creates a fast vibration. It actually increases the energy level. It's called piezoelectric current. Now, we all know about electrolysis. Do you know about scandium? Scandium this is scandium. Okay, it's an element. And it comes from Scandinavia, the land of Slavics. Is a soft, silvery transition element, which occupies in rare minerals from Scandinavia. It develops a slightly yellowish or pinkish cast, as if though you were just born and you're born healthy, or jaundiced when exposed to air. Scandium tarnished in air and burn easily once it has been ignited. I know you guys might think I'm insane, but that's okay, because I don't give a fuck what you think about me. Everything I present is a theory, and I don't know why that didn't change. Let me change that. Show you. Refractory metal, niobium, as such, used in alloys, tools, and dyes, and superconductive magnets. And scandium is a soft silvery transition element which occurs in rare minerals from Scandinavia. It develops a slightly yellowish or pinkish cast when exposed to air. Scandium tarnished in air and burn easily once it has been ignited. And so, like I said, it might seem boring, but guess what ignites scandium? Take a wild guess. What ignites scandium? Water. Guess what happens when you ignite scandium with water? It separates the elements: hydrogen, oxygen, and the carbon, which is an organic material, and water is a solvent, and it's called electrolysis. And when you put that scandium in water and it's creating that separation, it puts off hydrogen and oxygen, which is a fuel. And this is why they don't want you to know that water is an unlimited power source. They're taking everything of your energy. You are an environmental energy source. And there's an Environmental Protection Act that protects through the conservation easements, wildlife, and fisheries. All you have to do is know how to come in agreement with that warrant. I don't dismiss the United States government. I know exactly what it is. I don't dismiss the king or the queen or the prince or the duke. I know exactly who and what they are. And if they're going to use a military force to protect the material goods and services, I'm in agreement. And as being a user of those goods and services and not a warrant holder, in the benefactor position, I'm putting out the facts as they are because it's the benefactor that gives to the beneficiary. So this means I've turned the tables, and now what I put out goes through the queen and comes back. As long as I'm using it appropriately. However, if I use it and I harm somebody or cause injury or loss, it might look bad on the queen because she's the one that's contracting for those services. See what I'm saying? Yes, it is a totally subjective perception. You have to have been in my shoes and done the research that I've done. Again, that's why I say don't believe me. That would be certainly an objective view, is to just believe me. So I want you to have your own subjective view by doing your own research so you can discern for yourself, so you can come up on panel and discuss it with me and show me where I might be wrong or agree with where I'm correct. Tired of doing this alone, people. Really am. So anyway, it really is a matter of being able to put out what you want to come back. And if you want it to come back, then it's got to be something good. It's got to be inherently something that's going to be profitable unto man. And that is where we find Titus 3:8. This is a faithful saying, and these things I will that thou affirm constantly, not firm, but affirm constantly, that they which have believed in God might be careful to maintain good works. And we see a prayer to protect the Queen's warrant holders. So don't sit there and tell me this world doesn't follow the scriptures when they specifically ask for a prayer for the Queen. It would only be because you don't know this, or that you're a coward, unwilling to face it, and come to terms of agreement in the international forum and say, behold, praise Jesus. The law is uniform throughout all jurisdictions. And under Rule 803 of the Federal Rules of Evidence, Section 2, it says excited utterances. So hallelujah. Praise Jesus. May the King and Queen reign in honor. For the ancient scriptures that I use as my holy writs, put forth a prayer for them, and I agree with it. If they're going to use those scriptures, I'll use those scriptures in concurrence to the occurrence of the occupation of the land. For it shall not be so forever, because we are strangers and sojourners with him, and in all of the lands of our possession we grant the redemption. And if our brother be waxen and poor, and has sold away his belongings, and any one of his kin come to buy back them belongings, he shall redeem his brother. If you guys don't understand this, it's because you haven't subjected yourself to the same view, and you don't therefore have that same subjective view. So again, I urge you, don't believe me, don't believe your neighbor, don't believe the government, don't believe your mother, don't believe the Queen Mother, and don't believe the King Daddy. Do your research so you know. It's time to grow up and come to peace to the terms. Present a greater truth. Show them you're not a dummy. You don't need the higher education because you've got higher counsel with higher knowing and higher wisdom that gives you a greater experience. It's the only way you're going to get out of it. Otherwise, you're just going to continue on in that battle of the forms. It's up to you, not me. I've already made my decision a long time ago. So think about it. And remember, folks, I love you, but I don't give a fuck whether you love me back. So God bless. Have a good night.